Hey folks, let's talk about the future of the internet. Let us reimagine, redesign the internet and the search experience from scratch. I spent many a happy hours on this problem during the process of building Curator, which I was hoping would be my answer to building a web interface, a digital interface that is aligned to you, to how you actually want to interface with the world out there, and that can allow you to intentionally, purposefully derive the maximum of value that can allow you to maximize your ROI with the amount of time that you spend on the internet. And I was listening to a podcast with Irvin Srinivasan, and he was talking about obviously they're building the future of the search engine over there, and that is a very exciting modality. That's obviously going to be a huge part of the company, and obviously the techniques that they're using. Both of those things are going to be a huge part of how this landscape is going to evolve. So I guess this is as good time as any to talk about the future. Let's begin with the outline. The conversation is written in three parts. Part one, we talk about the current state. Part two, we define the terms, and we talk about the why of browsers, the why of search engine. What exactly are we looking for, right? And from first principles, we can rebuild the tools with the technologies that we have and the technologies that we are about to get into our hands and into our midst. So, and then at the end we talk about the end state, or rather the future state or the ideal state of the interface. And it's not just going to be an interface, it's going to be an intelligent interface, it's going to be a lot more, but we'll get to that in probably, well, based on how long these tend to be, 35 minutes. So if you've got the patience, strap yourself in for a ride. So the current state, what we do with the internet is so suboptimal that I could probably talk about this for, well, the next hour, but I'm going to keep it very short. The internet experience was not great to begin with, but with LLM generated, well, AI generated slop is defined as slop, so just slop with the amount of things vying for our attention, with the different ways that these systems are designed, these social networks are designed to keep on giving us those dopamine hits to keep us on these treadmills, even though these treadmills are not actually optimal for our longer term health, for mental health, and in terms of the goals that we have, right? So when you go on Instagram or Twitter, you've got certain goals that, what I'm trying to do, for me, for example, let's just use my example. At Twitter, there are so many great people, scientists, thinkers, economists, etc. I follow 3,500 people. These 3,500 people are some of the smartest people, and they share their ideas, they share their insights, they share their predictions about the world, they share the models of the world, right? And I, not having that mind, can see what other really smart people are thinking, and that allows me to make sense of the world, that allows me to just think more effectively, right, in one short sense. But the way these algorithms are designed, and Twitter's just gotten worse and worse, especially with the Elon Musk takeover, it tries to give you this content that can infuriate you, inflame you, keep you engaged, and give you a lot of political content. And humans are not well known to have a really strong self-control muscle, a really strong willpower muscle. So what happens with us is that we just tend to spend more time on these applications, on these websites, than we'd ideally like, and we don't get the kinds of things that we'd like, and we get the kinds of things that we don't like, right? Like feeling, for example, if you are Democrats, and if you're using Twitter, you're just gonna see a ton of content which is going to make you really miserable, and vice versa, right? So it's just a really piss poor example. Sorry to use that language. And yeah, and then with the internet, with the obviously there are limitations with the 10 blue links model that Facebook, or rather Google, has been relying on for the longest time. That was due for an update, and thankfully we've got Perplexity and other players like OpenAI's web search modules, etc. But just ignoring the last few months, I guess we can talk about the last few months, but before then you would type a search and then SEO generated crap would come up, depending on how much people are paid for those kinds of advertisements. So depending on the kind of content you're looking for, if you're looking for really high quality blogs written by really smart people who don't get a ton of views and who don't care about SEO optimization, you're not going to find the gems on the internet, right? Like the gems are going to be so dispersed, and because they're not engineering for that purpose of appearing at the top of the results, you're not actually going to see them, right? So that again defeats the purpose defeats purpose for a lot of people who are using the internet to find the highest quality ideas and insights and people, right? So that's there. Um, then with YouTube, for example, again, the recommendation engine is not really, sure, it's personalized to you in one way, but it's not a smart personalization, right? It doesn't really understand that. For example, with me, with YouTube, there are certain subjects that I'm interested in, certain subjects I'm more interested in, certain things I'm more interested in, but for the future, right? Like one of the things I'm very guilty of in using YouTube is because my range of interests vary so much that things that are not relevant for me in the moment. And let's just give a concrete example here. So robotics is one, nanotech is one, economics is one, geopolitics is another example, right? Where these are topics that I'm really interested in. But right now, my mission focus, laser focus, at least I'm hoping to be, on building my startup and getting it to escape velocity, right? And because I'm interested in these other things, if you put these things, and especially if these things are, delivered by really smart people with really smart insights, you are going to get captured and you are going to, want to listen to what these people have to say. And again, you tend to go down these rabbit holes, right? Which are not optimal for. So again, there's a balance. Like we tend to think that long-term happiness is what we want to optimize for, but it's not so much that. Like it's a lot more nuanced than that, right? Like if you've got a goal that you want to hit, for example, you want to learn everything about nanotechnology in the next 6 months, to upgrade your model of nanotech and nanoscience, because you want to build a company in that space, then it makes sense for you to not optimize for the long term where you've got other goals, right? Like that is a short term goal, but it is the most urgent goal. So it's not just about optimizing for the longer term, right? There's a lot of nuance that is not really related. So we can talk about that in some other conversation, but that is another point. Yeah, so the internet landscape is very broken, and then let's not get started about minors using the internet, right? Like there's just so much content, so much abuser content, so much graphic content on the internet, so much obscene content, so much filth on the internet. There's openly accessible to minors and to people who probably wouldn't have, in the counterfactual world, had they not come across that, they probably wouldn't have been enticed by it. And because at the end of the day, we're humans, and little humans among us, they're the weakest, right, in terms of willpower, in terms of self-control, etc. And so if you put certain kinds of content in front of them, and Instagram has been guilty of that, and just the whole wide internet has been guilty of it, right? Like you can do a harmless mistake in your Google search, and you're gonna see results that you did not in your wildest dreams, wildest nightmares would have wanted to see, right? And that happens a lot with minors. That happens, like, it's just not very controlled. It's not a very well-designed environment. The internet's broken in all sorts of ways. These are the major ways, but we can talk about other ways. But because in the interest of keeping this short, I want to talk about the other things which are more interesting. I'm going to wrap it up with the current state over here. Now, I think it makes sense for us to define and talk about the three things in play, right? So one is the browser, one is the search experience and the search engine, and the third thing is the internet itself, right? So the internet can be defined as a global network of interconnected devices and servers that enables information exchange, communication, and content sharing across the world, right? It's in a way it's become our world. Like whatever application you use, all the applications on your phone, even things like dating, even things like meditation, waking up, like all the different parts of your life, they probably use the internet on some level, right? Like it's just become so deeply entrenched. It's not just about getting the information. It's about so much more. It's about finding the right people. For example, if you're looking for a new job, you're going to use LinkedIn, right? If you're looking for a mate, you're going to use something like Bumble or Hinge, right? If you're looking for food, you're going to go on something like Instadash. What's the name of that? DoorDash, yeah, DoorDash or Uber Eats, something like that, right? Like you're gonna use the internet for probably pretty much everything in your life. There are only a few limited things that are outside of the moods of the internet, right? Let's just encompass the whole thing. The future vision is that it evolves beyond just a web of pages and into a deeply immersive, personalized, seamless web of experiences, right? Um, you're obviously going to see advances in augmented reality, Internet of Things, VR, and with these advances, it could blend into the real world, right? It creates ambient, location aware, context sensitive experiences that deliver information, connect people, and do a lot more for you in real time, right? It just becomes so much more. It actualizes its scope, which is that everything that exists outside of you in terms of the internet, in terms of people, in terms of information, that is the internet, right? Like, so you're you, and then everything around you in the digital world, that's the internet, right? And it could become so much more, it could become so much more useful, it could become so much more seamless, it could become so much more efficient, it could become so much more fun in a healthy way, immersive in a healthy way. And that is the future of the internet experience. Then let's define search engines. So search engines are obviously simple systems that index the vast content on the internet, and they return ranked relevant information based on your queries, right? And obviously you got that, and then you got the whole search experience. So that involves certain of the smaller parts of the thing. Yeah, and then let's talk about the future vision before we move on to the third thing. So the future could be a dynamic knowledge engine, and again, Perplexity has been making a lot of promising moves in this domain. And so what this dynamic engine could look like is that it could be context aware, it could be personalized, and it would be interactive. It will respond to your specific queries, but it can also anticipate needs because it understands you really well. And it can engage in dialogue, it can offer rich, synthesized insights across media types. Rather than just retrieving links, which is so 20th century, it will deliver deeper personal, deeper understanding, learning experiences, and actionable knowledge because it's connected to all your data sources, right? Like it's connected to your to-do apps, it's connected to your personal well-being app, your personal sanctuary app, it's connected to your meditation app, right? All sorts of different things. So that could be that. And then we move on to the third thing, right? The third pivotal part of this puzzle, which is the browser. That is obviously the interface, the software interface that allows you to access and interact with the internet. It obviously renders the web pages, which is how we mostly interact with the internet with our current limited modalities, enables search, multimedia content, and then obviously a whole host of features that allows you to organize and make things more accessible, right? So for example, Arc browser is one of the better examples of what a browser could be. And then obviously you've got some super simple browsers like Google Chrome, which are limited in their functionality and their feature suite. In the future, the browser could be transformed into a portal to the internet, from a portal to the internet into an AI-powered multimodal platform that can offer you immersive experiences and that can integrate seamlessly into AR, VR, mixed reality, and other interfaces, right? It might even evolve into a layer that overlays the physical world with digital information, making it a true extension of our senses and intelligence, right? It could be connected with something like Neuralink, and this could be accessible through voice, gestures, and augmented reality glasses, and obviously something like Neuralink, right? That can just reduce the latency and increase the bandwidth of information. That can that just serves to make the whole process more efficient and more streamlined with our expectations, right? So this is where we start talking about. This is where we start exploring the future of the internet. The exciting stuff starts now. There are so many different directions that this could go into, and we'll explore a few. So, what does the future of the internet, what is the end state of it? Or rather, not the end state, because things are going to keep on evolving beyond things that we're going to talk about in the next 20-30 minutes. But what does the ideal state of it look like, right? That is possible with the technologies of the next 20-30 years. The first thing that we're going to see, and we already start seeing this in drills with Claude getting out their project, which is in line with this, and I've seen a lot of other projects, companies, names I don't remember, building something of this sort. You're going to see a shift to intelligent and personalized search engines, right? You're going to see context-aware searches, And these won't just respond to keywords, but they'll be able to understand the context of what you want, right? Your intent. And it'll be able to differentiate between your, it'll be able to take into account even your emotions at some level, right? We'll obviously have persistent memory. We're going to have user modeling. So these search engines will be able to model you very deeply based on your interactions and based on other data sources like your journals, like your messaging history, like all the different data sources that are relevant, right? And it could then create a memory layer, or rather, it could create a user persona that could leverage a memory that learns from all the things that we mentioned, and it helps you again get to the answer, get to your ideal state in that search process much faster, right? Because if there's this agent that understands you, it's just going to be able to streamline that process much more efficiently. And then we're going to be able to shift from search to find to search to know, where the next generation of search will, move from from finding answers to interpreting and synthesizing knowledge and offering insights rather than links, right? Again, we start seeing this with LLMs. And this has almost become the default for, I'd say, well, the internet natives, certainly, but maybe even more than 100 million people, right? So this is already here. It's just going to get better and better in terms of, better memory, better context-aware searches, etc. Another thing that we expect to see, and this probably is going to happen over the horizon of 3 to 4 years, is that the internet's going to move beyond the traditional browser. You're going to see embedded search everywhere. We talked about this briefly 5 minutes back, with IoT, with AR, VR, wearables, and again we see this with Meta's Ray-Ban glasses, and then the Orion thingy. The browser as a standalone entity is going to evolve into an ambient search layer, where digital, especially because everything will have a digital component to it, even real world things will have a digital component to it, and we'll be able to interact with the digital components of the real world things. And then obviously voice and gesture, which have substantially lower latency and better in terms of user experience, they are going to become the standard inputs. And yeah, the browser experience could morph into something entirely hands-free, a completely screenless interface format. And again, Humane AI Pin, they tried to do a version of this, but their approach was pretty miserable, pretty poor in terms of the vision, not just, the execution was left a lot to be desired, but just the vision of it was like, sure, you can try it out, but I don't think that's very promising, right? And many people agreed with that sentiment. And then we're going to see immersive browsing through AR and VR, where you can imagine this AR browser where you can walk through a virtual environment of search results, right? And this would be especially promising for a company like Amazon, where instead of reading descriptions, you could actually interact with the objects, right? So just imagine this real quick. Like you want to buy some furniture for your new home, right? And instead of just looking at these static images, even though you can rotate them around, you'll be able to walk around. You'll be able to again with haptic suits, etc., like with not just haptic suits but like with super advanced stuff. You'll be able to touch and feel, and maybe even in the near future, not in the 3 to 5 year horizon, but beyond that, you'll be able to feel the different things. If you're buying a chocolate, for example, you'll smell it. If you're buying, you'll be able to immerse yourself into that buying experience at a level that is simply inconceivable at the moment. And then another thing that is super exciting is that the search experience will be interpreted as a relationship with AI, where obviously these things will just become more conversational in nature, right? It's like instead of us following the mode of having to type things out and just keeping things static at that level, you'll be able to have a conversation about the things that you're searching for, and it'll become like a virtual search assistant, and they'll be able to respond to you with their contextually aware and intelligent dialogues, right? Where they understand you very well, but this AI agent understands you very well. And we are going to see these AI agents imbued with the kind of personality that you would want in them, right? It could involve more than one agent depending on the kinds of things that you'd want to use these agents for. And these personalities would be customized. Like you could have a mentor who gives you advice. For example, let's say you're using the internet to find some really good life advice. I don't know why anyone would do that, but it turns out it's one of the most popular use cases of the internet. Like, one of the things I really like to do on the web is, just typing a few words and then leaving the rest, right? Like just letting Google's autofill fill out the rest, or seeing the suggestions, right? There's a term for those suggestions, and find that interesting because it allows me to. You can use Google Trends for this if you've got more time, but it allows you to see how people use the internet, and especially if you're trying to rebuild that, which I was trying to do for a significant period of time. I wanted to see how people use it, what the main use cases, and life advice. Because again, what we got to remember is that most people don't read books. Most people are pretty dumb, myself included, of course. Um, Most people don't want to think on their own, right? What's life advice? So you are in the grip of something, you're struggling with something, and you want to find a way out of it, you want to find a solution to that thing. Now, if you are someone who's got a reasonable amount of knowledge in terms of both depth and breadth, like you've read enough books, and if your brain can function pretty well in terms of synthesizing ideas and information and being critical in terms of questioning your ideas and biases, etc., then you'll be able to arrive at the optimal advice for yourself within an hour or within a few hours, right, depending on the complexity of the problem. Most people don't have that patience or have that those attributes, and so they're going to obviously take the shortcut, right? And so that's one of the big use cases. So you could have a mentor who could give you advice. You could have a friendly voice that can simplify information. Or if you're using, again, the the internet experience is going to evolve so much that it's difficult for me to even for certain things, right? For certain things, I can conceal these pretty solidly. But certain things, for example, with the Instagram, where you're passively looking at these images, or rather posts, videos, reels, etc., where people spend a ton of time on Instagram, like it could evolve into something where you might almost have, or this could be a version of, right? Like you could have this AI agent, this AI companion who's your Instagram companion, who could just say something witty or something interesting about that particular post that you are looking at. So that could be one particular use case. Or you could have a skeptic, right? Like you're doing scientific research and now you have a skeptical AI agent. So that could be another thing. And you obviously could be engaging in two-way conversations with these, ask clarifying questions. You could debate findings, or you could just add something fun to the conversation, right? So that's going to be a major modality of the internet use in the near future. And then we're going to see real-time translation of complex ideas, right? Where imagine searching for something highly technical and you can receive explanations which are really in tune with your understanding of the world, your base of knowledge, right? Like this AI understands your base of knowledge in terms of the depth and breadth, right? So for example, it understands that quantum physics really well. When it comes to the economics, when it comes to microeconomics, you're pretty poor, right? You've got a very base level of understanding, and they can incorporate all of those insights about you to deliver the most personalized, the most easy to grasp and intuitive explanation suited just for you, right? Like another example of this actually could go a step beyond, right? Like let's say someone who thinks in metaphors. This is something I do a lot of, not a lot of, like I could be doing more of it for sure. But I found myself thinking in terms of metaphors a lot. Like when I think about certain ideas, I can attach a metaphor to the idea. And again, a lot of people think in metaphors. I know the proportion of people, but that is something which is not that rare, right? And this AI could understand that, could know that you are really good when it comes to you're really good at ingesting information and synthesizing information when it's delivered to you, or in terms of text of the literary part of it, the factual part of it, and then molding that into a metaphor, right? That you could understand really well. So that could be another thing that you're probably going to see. We're going to start seeing decentralized search engines and privacy-focused browsing. A lot of people are really scared about, data breaches, and especially with the amount of information that you will need to go to AI agents for having the best internet experience. You are going to start seeing more and more people become more and more wary, especially with YouTube's track record, right? Where they just take all sorts of data from you, like in terms of website visits, etc., everything, and because people spend so much time on the internet, and because the internet has become almost like a reflection of our life, you can almost recreate a picture, a pretty compelling picture of representation of someone based on the internet data, right? History, like all history across everything. And so a lot of people are rightfully afraid about, having giving these companies all this data. So you're gonna see privacy as a standard, not as an add-on, right? And these companies will have to operate on user-owned data models where individuals will maintain full control of the data, and they'll be able to choose what to share. And again, this will be possible because all of these agents, because they are being reduced in size, right? Like, look at some of the small language models which can run on edge on your devices, right? Like, with these kinds of devices, again, these are only going to get better, more efficient. Like, you could run a super powerful agent on your phone in the year 2028, right? So this is going to become a possibility. It's a strong possibility. Like, you can have all the benefits without having to, without having to have an on-cloud search engine, right? Which just takes your data on the cloud and then, yeah, gives you the results based on that. And then we're obviously blockchain is going to be a huge part of it. You're going to see, when I say we are going to, again, these are obviously, predictions, strong predictions, but some of these might not pan out. We're going to see decentralized ecosystems flourish, and the next iteration of the internet, a version of the internet, might involve trustless search engines where the data isn't held by single companies, right? Like, data is held by, yeah, I don't know what the arrangement could be. Like, it could be held by obviously the user, but that would be certain kinds of data that needs to be accessible to multiple people, right? So for that kind of that category of data, that object of data, you probably would want to have, I'd need to have a think about those details. I think what you could do is again, at this base level, you could just use, if you're using trustless protocols, then that complicates matters a bit. But again, we don't need to harp on this any longer. Right? It could obviously, open source is just taken on like anything, and we're going to see community governed models come into the fore, where you're going to see a browser that's entirely open source and even community governed, and that could empower users to customize the browsing experience based on their preferences for security, etc. And this is something out there. This might take 10 years, but we might obviously see quantum computing based browsers, right? Internet experiences. And with this, we'll be able to analyze information and interpret information at exponential speeds that are unimaginable today, right? And the benefit of this would only be relevant once we actually have BCIs, right? Because the reduction in time wouldn't be relevant to someone like you at this moment. You wouldn't be able to even notice it. And then this would also probably evolve into hyper-contextualized knowledge extraction, where advanced AI could delve into patterns and relationships between data points, and they could predict questions before they are asked. That, for example, a search engine that can understand health queries, it might be able to connect symptoms, it might be able to, by connecting health data, and could also incorporate all of the relevant latest medical research into a real-time diagnostic assistant or agent. The internet, most of the internet as of now, is very much focused on information retrieval, right? But it could evolve into an internet of experiences. For example, we could see a manifestation of immersive experience-driven web, where the next era could stand around experiences rather than information pages, where learning, buying, socializing could become active, interactive journeys, right? Imagine browsing the internet like playing a game with missions and with story-driven navigation. So that could become something really interesting. And again, there are going to be companies that are going to be focused on certain niches. And I could see a company working on this, and I could see a pretty bright future for them, right? And this applies to a lot of the other directions that I've spoken about. We could see augmented reality marketplaces. I alluded to this a few moments ago, where instead of listings, users could visit virtual stores that merge product search with social experiences, not just virtual experiences, not just immersive experiences, but with social experiences, right? So, yeah, where you could interact with both people and products virtually, right? And if you're buying, for example, you could talk with someone about that product, about what the things that you're trying to get from this product. For example, if you're buying a car, and in the near future, well, not in the near future, but in 10 years, you could imagine new types of cars, new types of vehicles in the market. And if you're trying to buy a car which is very novel in terms of its conception, in terms of the things that it can do, you probably would want to talk with people who are really real enthusiasts, right? So you could have that kind of a thing. An example of this. Um, you could see social discovery integrated into search. And what this could mean in practice is that you could see social media and search engines converge, where users could find not only information, but they could join live discussions, they could share in collaborative explorations, they could learn directly from experts in the field. We could see we already start seeing the web content being redefined into multimodal formats, and that's only going to become more pronounced over time, where we could see audio, visual, and textual synthesis, where future browsers will seamlessly integrate multimedia search results, allowing users to explore information through audio, videos, images, and other mediums. We could see 3D browsing experiences, we could see digital twins, where entire digital twins of cities, companies, events will provide this immersive experiences for the users, and as if the user was present in these environments. We could see interactive and contextualized learning spaces. You can imagine a search engine designed like a personalized learning platform, where results include a mix of immersive sources, videos, interactive quizzes, simulations, and peer forums to help you understand complex topics and learn something effectively, right? And a lot of this content could be generated with AIs or could be synthesized with humans. Another facet of the future of the internet that is very interesting is that we could redefine search, or we could redefine trust in search and information credibility, right? Where we could have AI-powered fact-checking and credibility scoring. Where the future of the search engine could automatically fact-check sources and provide a credibility score based on transparency, author background, and consensus among reliable sources and other relevant factors. You can see collaborative verification systems. For example, in a decentralized system, users could rate and verify content for accuracy, incentivizing a more community-driven approach to content credibility. And we could see one of the limitations that we have is that we set in, because of the way our brains operates, like, for a lot of us, obviously software is pretty much very different, but a lot of the hardware base is pretty close, right? So there are certain biases which we are very afflicted to, but the AIs could have their own interpretation of these biases. They could understand what these biases are and what the viewpoints are, and they could offer the context of ideological biases of results, and they could show you a range of perspectives rather than a one-sided answer. We're going to move from the internet of things that you can see to the internet of things that you can feel, right? You can experience. We're going to see haptic and tactile internet modalities, where imagine that you don't just see content or hear content, you feel it, or it's transferred directly to your neural link, right? Hitting just the right spots. It could, with the advances that are happening in haptic technology, it could enable users to physically sense virtual environments and interactions, be it shaking hands in a virtual environment, in a virtual meeting, or feeling the texture of an item before buying, or even simulating the warmth of a of the sunlight in a travel preview. We could have emotional sensory experiences, where sensors and AIs could assess your emotional needs and emotional states to deliver personalized mood adaptive content, adjusting music, visuals, or even article recommendation based on feelings, making the internet more empathetic and less reactive environment. And We already start seeing it become a more curated and more personalized universe, but again, this trend is just going to go into overdrive. We're going to have these individualized internet spaces. Each of us is going to have a personalized personal universe where content, connections, and visuals evolve to reflect your interests, your curiosities, your growth, your styles, your goals. For example, if you're passionate about climate action, you might have an internet experience rich in environmental content and tools and aids, all of which it would be visually styled to reflect nature and sustainability. You could have a live phase adaptive browsing where the internet could adjust to different life stages and career phases, automatically curating information, resources, and connections suited to each phase, from study, career building, parenting, retirement, and other things beyond it. You're going to obviously go deep into spatial and immersive web experiences. You could even do virtual time travel. For example, you could visit historical places and sites as they were, using reconstructions, with the internet providing a multi-sensory travel experience. We could walk ancient streets, interact with ancient characters like Jack the Ripper. I know, the worst example you could possibly conceive of. I was just reading about him for some reason, so that's why it was the first name. Joan of Arc, right? Imagine bumping into Joan of Arc, or bumping into Shakespeare, or bumping into James Madison, right? Before the thing. We are going to see hyper-personalized human model AI companions. We're going to see AI personas for every life role. You're going to see emotional reflection AIs that can sense your mood through biometrics and interactions, offering personalized responses, reflections, or content that helps deepen your understanding of your personal challenges and insights, right? It could act as a mirror, very intelligent mirror, very personalized mirror, helping you gain new perspective on your own thoughts and emotions. It could become your lifelong learning partner. It could, as in the internet, the entirety of the internet, right? It could, like, the interface could become your lifelong learning partner, where you have these personalized knowledge paths that could turn, that you could be guided on, evolving. They might offer expert verified articles, content, courses, immersive courses, interactive activities, and real world project suggestions and aids and tools tailored to your skill levels, interests, goals, and curiosities. We could see skills map. And again, these are things that I've actually worked on, aspects of this I've worked on for something else I was working on, where this AI can actually map your curiosities, map your background, map your base of knowledge, back both in terms of breadth and depth, and can really understand you at that level and help you create learning journeys and help even map you on the level of your abilities, right? They can streamline your process of finding jobs or roles or even work that is more suited to the kinds of things where you would feel most alive. So yeah, an example of this could be skills map with real-time coaching, right? Where you could view these skill progress mapped up visually, showing trends, showing areas of improvement, potential career or personal development paths. And you could couple this with real-time coaching, where the skill map could suggest relevant skills, micro exercises, etc. And as the user grows, the internet could dynamically respond to your learning needs, evolving learning needs. We could see the internet become a place for virtual citizenship. Again, we have seen these ideas in discourse, in public discourse, for the last few years, especially since Balaji Srinivasan brought them to the fore with his network state, and he was talking about how people are going to be more connected over ideas rather than over, their ancestry or their ethnicities or where they were born, right? And there's a lot of truth to it, and you always start seeing this trend. Like if you go back to the 18th century, like your nation and your religion, they were the two most important things, right? You couldn't think beyond them. But now people change their nations, and a lot of people don't believe in religions, and people become entranced and become captured in a positive way by visions, ideas which are not religious in nature, right? For example, effective accelerationism, um, for example, transhumanism, for example, um, yeah, I mean, there are these schools of thought, there are these efforts, there are these attempts, there are these visions of the future of the world that bring people to these movements and these schools of thought. And these are going to be the dominant countries of the future, right? So yeah, the internet could become a place for virtual citizenship where you're going to see this could be enabled or used by blockchain again, where you're going to see communities gathering, operating as digital nation states, where since users can be citizens of communities aligned with their interests, their values, their purposes, and these communities might include digital governance, virtual economies, and citizenship, which is citizenship based content curation. You could see collective civic projects, like you could see users collaborate in massive projects like environment conservation. I've actually seen a lot of promise in this particular thing because of my passion for environmental restoration, wildlife restoration, community building, virtual arts installations, and these are initiatives that could bring people from around the world together, giving the internet a more community-oriented, participatory structure, which harkens back to the original founding vision of the internet. We could see it's actually getting in tune. We could see the internet getting in tune with how we want to use it at the higher level, not the level of our lower selves in a way, right? But we could see it enhance our mindfulness, our personal growth. We could see future internet experiences track our habits and suggest wellness breaks or suggest better ways to use the internet in line with who we want to be rather than the lesser angels of our nature. Imagine browsing and receiving nudges and prompts and notifications to take a breath or move around or move away from this kind of content which is not healthy for you, which is you actually don't want to use, but you're just being captured by the nature of it. We could see wellness integrated browsing, and with the internet having wellness features integrated into it, such as apps that modify like micro meditations between tasks, things like that, right? And this could be something that could make the internet an actively healthy place, a wholesome place that can support your mental and physical well-being. So I've given you a lot of different directions that the internet could go, and a lot of different features, a lot of the different ideas that the future of the internet could encompass. I want to take a step back. I want to take a higher level view of how we want to use the internet, right? In the end state, in the future state, in the perfect state, in the perfectly optimal state. At the high level, you want the internet to have an interface, a layer that is super personalized to you, that feeds you information and connections and ideas and people that are good for you holistically, for your holistic self, not just your dopamine seeking self, or not yourself that you are trying to improve upon, but your ideal self, right? And it could deliver these in proportions and ways that your ideal self is determined to be optimal for your longer term growth and happiness. And it could be an internet, it could be an AI agent that could be trained on reinforcement learning with the objective function of maximizing your high level curiosity and high level happiness, right? It would act as the unified ultimate interface. So again, my vision for Curator was that it would be your internet companion, it would be your internet gatekeeper, it would be your internet interface, right? There's the interface part of it, and then there's the AI agent that helps you navigate the interface, right? You can think of, again, now we're getting into the architectural details, but you can synthesize both the things into one. And I don't know whether it's more appropriate to call it an agent or whether it's more appropriate to call it an interface. I guess we can call it an intelligent interface. Yeah, I guess that makes more sense. And yeah, this interface, its primary objective would be to help you learn, help you grow, help you connect with people, in a way that is most optimally suited to your ideal self vision of yourself, right? It would also be connected to all your different applications across every device, all your profiles, your be it your social media profiles, be it your video streaming profiles, etc. It could also help you do internal searches across your applications, right? It could be that unified knowledge management base across everything. And that was my vision for Curator. The reason I ceased working on it was that it's a very ambitious vision, and it's not something that you can bootstrap, right? And I still want to work on it. I'm still going to work on it. I've done a lot of the foundational work, and I'll probably work on it in a year or two, because this is a product that I actually want to use more than anything else, right? Because again, the internet is something that we're going to use more and more of, but we want to use it in a way that is aligned to our truest self, right? To our ideal self. And I don't find that to be the case. Obviously, I mean, the internet is limited, the browser experience, the search experience, they are limited in so many ways. And Curator was my answer to fixing some of those issues and personalizing the experience for you and aligning it with your true self, ideal self motives and drivers, right? The reason I stopped working on it was, as I said, it was very ambitious. You couldn't bootstrap it, like you need a lot of funding for it. But because the vision's so ambitious, it would also be difficult to get the funding for it, because investors, they want you to focus on something pretty niche, right? Where you can actually, like a veg thing, where you can actually make a meaningful difference. With the search experience, you obviously got so many players. With the internet, with the browser, you got so many players. So it didn't quite make sense to get into it, because even though the vision is unique, you would get clobbered. You wouldn't have enough capital to be able to bring your vision to the world. And that doesn't match up to me if I got 100 million in the bank. That's my hope, right? Like, there are loads of products that I actually want to build for myself that I don't need anyone else to use. I'm just going to build them for myself because I want to use these products, right? If someone else uses them, I wouldn't give a damn about the financial benefit that I might get from it. Like, I wouldn't care about the revenue that I might get from it. Like, the whole point of building these kinds of things I want to build, like, I want to build this personal sanctuary app, which I'm super passionate about. Like, I've got this whole vision, and like I've got probably 50 pages of notes around that, and that loads of other things I want to build, I want to bring to the world. So I want to bring them to the world mostly for myself and maybe people close to me, right? Like my family who might be interested in, like my kids, for example, etc. Sapium is an example of this, where I'm going to build this. Again, it's a combination of a learning management system with your own personalized learning AI tutor. And this is going to be the future of learning, right? Like, schools are suboptimal, colleges are suboptimal. I mean, you obviously want to have certain parts of schools and colleges, especially the social parts of it, in terms of knowledge, in terms of learning, they are pretty suboptimal. So this is a system that my kids are going to use to learn, and obviously there's going to be other parts to it. It's not just going to be a standalone application. But yeah, there's certain things that I hope to use, and then people in my life, I hope that they'll use. Not necessarily hope, but they just will, right? Because the product's going to be pretty good. Or the application, the work is going to be pretty good. But yeah, so that's that. I'm going to return back to Curator, building this intelligent interface, and gatekeeper come companion come curator later. But yeah, for the time being, I can just muse upon what the world might look like, right? Also, there's this period in time, I remember I was walking on a beach in Bali. I was thinking about what next to do. And I wanted to pick something which was quite ambitious. And this Curator was one of the things. But related to Curator was a desire to want to rebuild the internet, right? So Curator is an interface to the internet, but there's the internet itself. And when you think of the internet, now the internet is everything out there, right? It just contains everything. But we don't need everything. We don't need 99.999% of the internet, right? Like, you're never going to need it. Now, obviously, having an intelligent AI agent could solve the problem of that particular thing. But I'm talking about something related, which is that even though we don't want to see most of the internet, it's still accessible to us with one click, right? And I'm talking of focus mostly on minors right now. But even with adults, that tends to be the case, right? Like, you get lost in rabbit holes You can, for example, like you see on Twitter, when you see these politicians, these, for example, if Joe Biden has tweeted something, you're going to see a whole suite of the most obnoxious, the most ugly characters just say the worst things. Like they've got nothing useful to add to the discourse. All they're gonna do is ad hominem attacks, and yeah, you don't want to see that, but you hope to go to some of these things, hoping to see some ideas, hoping to learn something, but invariably you don't, right? The point I'm trying to make here is that most of the internet is a place that you don't want to visit, and there are places because you're a weak-willed individual. Obviously, once you attain self-mastery, then this particular thing doesn't matter anymore. But once you're in this phase of being a low, bro, weak human, weak-willed human, you can get lost in rabbit holes that you would rather not. And yeah, so my solution to this was that we create a walled garden of the internet. We create a new internet which is free from these toxic things, which is AI free, because again, there's just so much AI slop on the internet. It could have quality AIs generating content, etc. But that could be a question that could be sorted later. There are a few critical components of this new internet, and this new internet that I had in mind, it wouldn't have any toxic stuff, wouldn't have dark web stuff. And again, obviously you have to define what toxicity means, but it wouldn't have dark web stuff, it wouldn't have pornography, it wouldn't have abusive stuff, it wouldn't have the toxicity that the open internet has, right? And a lot of people would love to have that kind of internet experience. And yeah, you could use this internet could be useful even without having the intelligent interface like Curator, right? This is something I wanted to build, and this particular internet would have existed without Curator, because Curator probably would have taken 2 more years to build, 1 more year. And so this would have solved the problem of having a non-aligned, well, not non-aligned obviously, because most of the internet is non-aligned, having a non-optimal internet experience where you see things, or you it's like you just don't want to interact with those kinds of things, right? You just don't even want to have them in the vicinity. And then you don't want to know that you're gonna see this kind of material on the internet, and this would have been a solution to that. There's a version of this which might eventuate in the world. There are different versions of this, right? Like we could see the internet fracture into many different internets. The walled garden internet that I referred to, and someone else's version and vision of the walled garden could be different from mine, and they could have their own versions. Like different communities could have their internet, because most people don't need most of the internet, right? Like, for example, if you're not, yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't need to give an example. Yeah. And before the AI agent comes to our aid in helping us navigate the open internet, this could have been a placeholder solution, and it could have been a more than a placeholder solution, right? It could have been a part of the extended solution, because again, especially with dark web, especially with pornography, especially with toxic content, even if you've got an intelligent agent, you probably don't want your intelligent agent to have to navigate through the absolute morass of the absolute toxicity, the absolute filth of these regimes, these regions of the internet, right? So, yeah. But the vision was that it would, yeah. So I would just briefly want to talk about Curator for a few more minutes before we wrap this up. And I'm glad that I was able to keep it under an hour. Right, so Curator, as I mentioned, was supposed to be, it's still supposed to be 2 things combined into one, fused into one, right? So one is the one is the interface to the internet. So you know how to touch the internet yourself. Like everything is filtered through Curator, through that layer. And then there's the intelligent agent that actually does the filtering, that actually does the retrieving, that has the recommendation engines, that has the filtering engines, right? So the way I was thinking of it was that it would replace your browser. I hadn't really confirmed the form factor for this, but intuitively it just makes sense that the best form factor for this would be a new browser, which would be very simple, because everything would be arranged in the memory layer of your Curator, right? So you wouldn't need to have because our browsers, like the reason we've got bookmarks, etc., the reason we've got a ton of this stuff is that we need to have a layer beyond the stupid browser layer that can allow us to interface with information more effectively depending on our goals, etc. Right? If you've got this intelligent interface, it can save all of those layers within itself and have other features that might not just be possible with current models. So it's supposed to do that. It's supposed to be the intelligent layer. It was also supposed to replace your entire internet experience by, for example, if you're using Twitter, if you're using Instagram, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, I mentioned Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, then obviously these systems, they've got the recommendation engines, right? And they're going to recommend things to you, many of which will not be optimal, many of which might be unaligned, right? Which might be aligned to your highest self. And so this was supposed to act as, for example, with Twitter. Like, there are some really good conversations on Twitter, but you don't want to see the stuff that you don't want to see, right? So it could filter away those things. It could just give you the material. Like it could act as a really smart filter, just knowing what to send you, what to send your way, and with insights, etc. With YouTube, again, yeah, it would have its own recommendation engine rather than relying on YouTube's recommendation engine, etc. So that you don't have to deal and see the stuff that you'd rather not. You could also, fix the broken information system, the broken news system, by giving you more perspectives, by being, for example, if you're trying to understand both sides, doing that could help you go against your biases. It could help you keep your thought muscles strong and short, right? And yeah, it was a glorious vision. I still want to bring it to the world. I want to bring it to myself more than anything else. And yeah, the internet's going to evolve in all sorts of exciting ways. It is going to encompass more and more of our life. We just wanted to follow the singular purpose of, being aligned to who we want to be, rather than being aligned to the whims of social media behemoths and search engine behemoths, right? Who are trying to maximize profit. What we are trying to maximize is well-being, longer-term well-being. And yeah, I do foresee the internet experience catering more and more to, well, obviously with the right choices that the builders and founders are hopefully going to make, we are going to see these systems become better. You're going to see us derive more value in terms of the ROI, in terms of the joy, in terms of our satiating our curiosity from our internet experience than ever before. We are going to be able to find the kind of connections, the kinds of people, the kinds of experiences, the kinds of foods, the kinds of travel experiences, etc. that we want to find, right? Like, it would just, this interface would be almost like a mirror, and it would be able to give you precisely what you want. So yeah, it's going to be exciting times to see how this evolves. And yeah, I'm going to be a part of it. So yeah, I guess I'll keep you updated on how things evolve on that front once I actually start working on that. I think that's it for the time being. Thanks for the time. Cheers. Bye.